This is The Space Shot, episode 167 for October 28th, 2017. Ares 1X. Hey everyone, welcome to The Space Shot, your daily space history, pop culture, and news fix. I'm John Molnix. On October 28th, 2009, the Ares 1X lifted off Pad 39B for the first and only time. This slender 327-foot tall rocket utilized a modified solid rocket booster from the shuttle program as its first stage. Its upper stage was inert, filled with ballast and instrumentation, much like the Saturn I that I talked about in yesterday's episode. NASA called this launch, quote, the first flight of a new era, and that really wasn't the case. The Ares 1 and 5 launch vehicles were part of NASA's ill-fated Constellation program that was canceled when President Obama proposed a new NASA budget in the early years of his administration. As a result of the Augustine Commission and the decision by President Obama to cancel the Ares program, the Ares 1 never flew again. Originally, the Ares 1 was meant to be a human-rated rocket, carrying crew into space in an Orion spacecraft to meet up with the proposed Altair lunar lander or the International Space Station. Obviously, that never happened, and the Orion is the only part of the Constellation program to survive the cancellation of that project. The cancellation of the Ares 1 project doesn't really seem to be too big of an issue because commercial companies like Blue Origin and SpaceX are beginning to get to a point where they will be able to fly humans into space in the coming years. Today's episode is coming out a little bit later because I've been working on some travel plans and getting my schedule in order for what is going to be a very busy November. During the first part of the month, I'm going to be at the Cosmosphere in Hutchinson, Kansas to record December's episode of the Cosmosphere podcast. While I'm there, I'm going to be working on some other things, so stay tuned for updates. After I spend a little bit of time with some of my family in Kansas, I'm going to be driving to Denver, Colorado to fly from Denver to California. I'm going to be headed to Vandenberg Air Force Base to hopefully see the launch of a Delta II rocket that will be carrying the Joint Polar Satellite System 1 satellite into space. This mission is the penultimate Delta II launch, with the final launch of this venerable rocket tentatively scheduled for late 2018. I've got a few other things planned for the 36 hours I'm going to be in California, and you can bet it's going to be jam-packed with space-related things. And coffee. Definitely coffee, because the launch window for the Delta II opens at 1:47 a.m. Pacific Time on November 10th. I may not stay up that late for a live stream, but you better believe I'm going to be psyched and ready to roll for the launch that morning. Fingers crossed there's no weather delays or launch scrubs. Even if that's the case, it'll still be cool to get out there and see the Space Shuttle Endeavour, the Griffith Observatory, and depending on traffic, I might even dart over to SpaceX headquarters on my way back to the airport to check out the Falcon 9 that's on display outside of their Hawthorne factory. It'll be an excellent way to wrap up my vacation week. There's a bunch of other rocket launches for the beginning of November that I'll be linking to as their launch dates approach, so keep an eye out for those on Facebook. Since you're here, why don't you let me know what you think of the podcast by leaving a review in iTunes? It takes just a minute to do that, and it makes a huge difference because it helps even more people find the show. As always, the show notes have more information on today's episode. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram and Twitter. Find me at John Molnix. I'm always up to chat. You can also connect with me on Facebook. Just search for The Space Shot or click the link in the show notes. I'd also appreciate it if you could share The Space Shot with your friends and family and anyone else that enjoys podcasts. Tomorrow, the weekly wrap-up, and John Glenn returns to space. I'm John Molnix, and I'll catch you on the flip side.